traitors, as history proves, and they always lose.
That's curious. Weren't some of our greatest heroes persecuted for this reason?
Who?
Mandela, Gandhi, Jesus? You idealist. Okay, now for another perspective. Prison Planet host Alex Jones.
This Assange has apparently shown the emperor on the palace throne grabbing at clothes, but I've heard anecdotes, I'll show it fits. This Patsy's a triple agent for the globalists. He claims openness, but he's actually a catalyst for the one world government of commie Nazi fascists. Robert, I'm getting paranoid. I need to state this is a false flag attack to bring in a police state. A cyber 9/11, that's the secret vision. Right now they're griefing Julian in a British prison.
All around the world, from Baltimore to Budapest, the human spirit's in unrest. The economy collapsing, corporate interests rising, what time religion on the run. Oh, but no one's asked me what I think, what I want, but I'm here to tell you anyway. This is a strange world that we live in, and these are indeed strange times. Oh, if you want to understand them, you gotta have a strange mind.
Well, I think we're on the air. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Clinical Depression. Finding no pleasure at all in most activities. This is the maiden voyage, the initial episode of this show, and glad that you could drop by and tune in tonight. This is a show which is going to air on the last Wednesday of every month at 7:30 p.m. and in which we'll be exploring the condition of clinical depression and how it informs the culture. We'll be studying people throughout history who have dealt with depression, such as the first world leader who stood up to Adolf Hitler, the great alcoholic Winston Churchill of England, who named his own depression the Black Dog. And also the great American President Abraham Lincoln, who presided over one of the greatest cultural turning points in American history, of whom his colleague Henry Whitney remarked, quote, "No element of Mr. Lincoln's character was so marked, obvious, and ingrained as his mysterious and profound melancholy." We'll also be looking at the great influential New York City photographer Diane Arbus, whose photographs of marginalized people such as dwarfs, giants, transgender people, nudists, and circus show freaks have become immortalized as examples of unparalleled photographic intimacy. We're going to be doing all that. And well, this is my first time, as I mentioned, our first show, and so I'm learning the board here, and usually don't use a Mac, but what I was just referring to, we're going to do a fade short, and let's see how this works. Hey, look at that. Now let's see if F11, there's no F11 on this keyboard. On Windows, you can make it so that the browser disappears, you don't see the browser. Anyway, I was talking about a segment that we're going to be doing regularly on this show called Spotlight on History, where we're going to look at great people in history. We'll also be exploring other influential figures such as the great poet Sylvia Plath, Robin Williams, Kurt Cobain, Syd Barrett, Rodney Dangerfield, and many more, all of whom were burdened by clinical depression. Today's subject is the great American pop culture icon Marilyn Monroe, who we'll be getting to shortly. Just hold your horses, just sit tight, settle in, Maybe you already have a snack, maybe a cup of tea. We'll also, just bear with me, I don't have a technical assistant with me. We're also going to have a segment, oh, I already had it open. Let's see, we'll do the fade short. We're going to be doing another segment called Sad Songs, which is going to be a regular segment on this show in which we cover hit songs that have topped the charts, not the church, which are rooted incontrovertibly in depression, and why songs so sad and bleak have such an appeal. And let's see what the star looks like. There we go. We're going to have another segment that is called Tips and Tricks. Let's see what the fade short. Tips and Tricks. And tips and tricks, that's where we're going to explore possible techniques for confronting acute symptoms of depression and anxiety in ourselves and others. Try the wipe. There we are. Yeah, there's like at least three people who are possibly are going to come down and do little segments tonight and stuff. Unfortunately, one of them is in Ohio, and the other two are just too depressed to make it down. Tonight's a rainy night. It's already dark. Tomorrow's Christmas Eve. It's a stressful time of year. So it's 7:36 now, 7:46. I got 21 more minutes. But I'm prepared. As you see, I've got my papers. And so let's see, where are we now? Yeah, well, so we're not going to have any special guests tonight. It's just going to be me, but I'm going to make it fun and interesting. And we're going to get into clinical depression. And so right now we are going to do the segment, do a fade short of Spotlight on History. I mentioned it's tonight's subject is whoops, we'll do a cut. There we are. Well, here, let's just dive right into it with a short fade. Again, I apologize that you could see the browser. On Windows, if you hit F11, the browser disappears and it's just the image. But that's another thing I'll just have to figure out as we move forward into the show. So without further ado, our inaugural exploration of Spotlight on History, we're exploring the enduring American pop culture icon of vulnerable yet comedic and coy sexuality, the great Norma Jean Mortensen, perhaps best known as Marilyn Monroe. Did you know that her maternal grandmother committed suicide and that she never knew who her dad was? And shortly after her birth, her mom was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia and was institutionalized off and on for the rest of her life. And Marilyn became a ward of the state of California and grew up in 12 different foster homes. 12 different foster homes. Again, once I figure this stuff out, it's going to be so much more awesome. But check it out. Check out this photo of Marilyn. We're going to do, we're going to do a short fade. And so, 12 different foster homes. Not really the best start in life. When she was 16, her foster family moved to West Virginia for a job opportunity, and California law prevented taking Marilyn out of state, so she married her 21-year-old neighbor, Jim Doherty, instead of being put into one more foster home. And she dropped out of high school and found work at the Radio Plane Munitions Factory, which should be this one. Oh my goodness. We'll do a fade long. See how that looks. At the Radio Plane Munitions Factory. She got her first job at the age of 16 after dropping out of high school in 1943 as part of the war effort. Here she is at the Radio Plane Munitions Factory, photographed by Army photographer David Conover, who was sent to the plant to shoot morale-boosting pictures of female workers, which gave Marilyn an in to perhaps a life more suited to her. As she began modeling for Conover, who encouraged her to apply to the Blue Book model agency, to which she was signed, became one of their hardest working models, And within a few years, within 2 years, she appeared in 33 different magazine covers. Do a fade, we'll do a cut. 33 different magazine covers. Check this out. Including, such publications as Pageant, U.S. Camera, Laugh, Peak, and the unforgettable and venerable Photo Parade. There she is. Now she's not in foster care anymore. Then she was soon to be divorced. And of marriage, she said, here she is at 18, "Marriage didn't make me sad, but it didn't make me happy either. My husband and I hardly spoke to each other. This wasn't because we were angry. We had nothing to say. I was dying of boredom." And so she found a life where it was a little more exciting and a little more suited to her. She was a natural. And so she soon did get divorced and focused on her modeling career, which soon turned into an acting career, which soon enough became immortalized in Hollywood lore, as we all know, appearing in such all-time classic films as The 7-Year Itch, Some Like It Hot, Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, Bus Stop, The Misfits, Niagara, How to Marry a Millionaire, All About Eve, and The River of No Return. And she went through a few changes. Let me find the scroll bar. Oh, which one was it, man? Let's see, was it 4? Was it that one? No, okay, so it's 5. Oh boy, here we go. We can do a fade long on this. She worked alongside such Hollywood legends as Robert Wagner, Lee Marvin, Ginger Rogers, Cary Grant, Jim Backus, Richard Widmark, Barbara Stanwyck, Betty Grable, Lauren Bacall, Robert Mitchum, Laurence Olivier, Tony Curtis, Jack Lemmon, Bing Crosby, Gene Kelly, Milton Berle, Tony Randall, Montgomery Clift, Greta Garbo, Elizabeth Taylor, Marlene Dietrich, Rita Hayworth, Jean Harlow, Burt Lancaster, the list goes on and on. She founded her own production company, Marilyn Monroe Productions, in 1954, and by the end of the decade, netted more than $200 million for herself, an unheard of sum for an actress at the time. She was a grand, triumphant success and lived happily ever after, dying of natural causes at the ripe old age of 94, surrounded by her large, loving family and dear, lifelong friends. But if only. We all know that it's not exactly how the story ended up. I'm gonna get ready for our, boy. So we all know Marilyn suffered an early demise at the age of 36. As she became increasingly difficult to work with, she divorced her third husband, Arthur Miller, the playwright, after which she drew up a new will in which she gave one of her psychiatrists, Dr. Marianne Criss, portions of her estate. She took a hiatus from film work, moved to New York, became addicted to barbiturates, willingly entered a psychiatric hospital in upstate New York at the suggestion of Dr. Criss, and then moved back to Los Angeles where she succumbed to a barbiturate overdose. I guess you're not supposed to really see the paper. Alone in Beverly Hills. I wrote it all down. I couldn't memorize all this. I'll be ad-libbing here and there. It's rumored that the final blow was getting dumped. Whoa, look at that. Okay, we want this. And we're going to do a fade long. Let's see. Yes, getting dumped by President John F. Kennedy's brother, Robert F. Kennedy, who was married. It is documented that she made repeated phone calls to the Justice Department where Attorney General Robert F. Kennedy worked. And at the very end, she relied on daily visits to her Los Angeles psychiatrist, Dr. Ralph Greenson, to see her through each 24-hour period. Finally, on August 4th, 1962, Marilyn spent the day making phone calls to her friends. Dr. Greenson visited her for a short time in the early evening. And the number of people who claim to have talked with Marilyn on her last day is the stuff of Hollywood legend. Everyone from Joe DiMaggio to Marlon Brando, from Sidney Skolsky to Isidore Miller. From her bedroom, Marilyn continued making phone calls into the night. Actually, let's try this one. We'll do a cut. Yes, okay. Nah, we want this one. Fade short. See, we're gonna do it. No. Let's see, can we go back to the computer? Cut. Yes. And then how about this one? Cut. Fade short. Ah, there we are. We're back. And then she made phone calls into the night. And then sometime during the night of August 4th and the early morning hours of August 5th, 1962, Marilyn died alone. Her white phone still clutched in her hand. And now we're going to come into the home stretch with our little spotlight on history of Marilyn. Let's see if a fade long is going to get us. Yeah. Her second husband, the great Yankee center fielder and all-time legend Hall of Famer Joe DiMaggio, oversaw her funeral arrangements, an extremely private service to which no one from the Hollywood film industry was invited. As Joe stated, quote, "If it wasn't for them, she'd still be here." Did you ever read Joe DiMaggio's famous tell-all book about Marilyn? Well, the reason why you've never read it is because Joe never wrote it. Like Marilyn, he was never known to kiss and tell, and his secrets were also buried with him. He did have flowers sent to Marilyn's gravesite twice a week for 20 years, and on his own deathbed, he told his lawyer, Morris Engelberg, quote, "At least now I'll finally get to see Marilyn again." Joe, good old Joe, is a hero of mine. And, well, Joe didn't need to accept any of the dozens of multi-million-dollar book offers to write a tell-all book about Marilyn, because in his old age, he was able to make some extra cash endorsing Mr. Coffee, the first popular household automatic drip coffee machine. And he did such a good job at it that to this day, people still refer to automatic drip coffee machines as Mr. Coffee. It's a Mr. Coffee machine. You hear that all the time. I've worked at the 1369 Coffee House for 20 years. And people still say, you know, I need a ground for a Mr. Coffee. Much like you never hear of anybody say, you know, you want to go to the park and play with a flying disc. Everybody calls it a Frisbee, which is a trademarked name of a product. In this particular case, it is the, I wish I had all these links open originally, but I didn't have enough time to just get everything set. It's the registered trademark of the Wham-O toy company, Frisbee. But as you can see, we're starting to get, you know, off the subject, but because, well, obviously we're not talking about pop culture commodities. We're talking about a human being. You know who we're talking about. We're talking about Norma Jean Mortensen, perhaps best known as Marilyn Monroe. And that concludes this month's segment of Spotlight on History, focusing on the eternally sad cautionary tale of a great pioneering lady who had no shortage of adulation, fame, and wealth. But in the final analysis, it wasn't enough to get her through that fateful night. Clinical depression, it's obviously we see what it did to Marilyn. Now, the phones aren't working tonight here, but if you do have anything you'd like to add to the show, anything you want to be on the show, anything you want to say, just send a self-addressed stamped envelope to Clinical Depression, care of Cambridge Community Television, 438 Massachusetts Avenue, Cambridge, Massachusetts, 02139, or you could stop by. We still have 8 more minutes to go. So, you know, please write us a letter. We'll we'll send you a postcard and we'll read your letter on the show. Now the next segment we're going to dive into is sad songs. And this month's segment of sad songs is not so much about a song, but instead it features a poem, which is sort of like a, it's close enough to a song. And the poem, do a fade short. The poem that we're going to feature on sad songs, although we could call it sad poetry, it's a poem that was written, we're going to do a fade long, that was written by the late great Bradford Moore, known to his friends as J. Buster. Buster was from Lowell, Massachusetts, and along with a loose collection of friends who became known as the Lowell Lifes, moved to the gorgeous island of Martha's Vineyard in the late 1980s. The Lowell Lifes would gratefully influence the art and music scene on Martha's Vineyard for the next 25 years, mostly with a series of music groups throughout the years, beginning with the unforgettable punk rock group Massive Cock, the art rock group Diarrhea Roses, and later bands fronted and led by Buster, such as Caustic Deathbed and Mousy Tongue. Buster also held court at the Daggett Avenue monthly poetry readings, as well as having art shows for his visual arts, which I remember mostly a few ornately painted toilet seats. It was great stuff hanging on the wall of the art gallery. Buster died last April 2015, sadly by his own hand. His friend and fellow Lowell Life Marty Barrett, a Los Angeles-based writer who can be found at martybarrett.com, eloquently spoke of Buster in Buster's obituary published in the Martha's Vineyard Times, in which he spoke about calling mutual friends to inform them of Buster's death. And he says, quote, "Oddly enough, when we began the process of calling faraway acquaintances, everyone we reached admitted that it was not Brad, Buster, but another mutual friend whom they expected had died. And when we reached that guy to break the news, he said, 'What do you want me to do about it?' It underlines the point that depressed people sometimes drive us away. Sometimes it is uncomfortable for us to be around them because our own happiness is so precarious. It's only when they're gone that those feelings give way to the regret of not having done some simple thing." And coincidentally enough, the poem that we're going to highlight tonight that Buster wrote is kind of exactly about what Marty was just talking about. I'm going to do a fade long into it. The poem is called Poem for Joey. And let's see. Okay, so let's dive into it. The first time I saw her, she was singing in a rock band. And the band wasn't all that good, but her voice was. She was a powerful presence, 16 or 17 years old, yet in total control, or so it seemed. Now we'll scroll down so we could read the next one. Over the years, we connected and disconnected. Let me scroll up a little. There we are. I never knew her that well. I think we both liked each other, but nothing ever came of it. The last time I saw her was at a bar in Boston. She didn't see me. I was sick and should not have been drinking, but I was. I should have gone over and talked to her, but I didn't. A few months later, she was dead. What I heard was she and her boyfriend pulled over on the side of the Mass Turnpike, connected a hose from the tailpipe to the window, and that is what they did. That is how it ended. Alone on the side of the highway. Well, let's see if the scroll bar is going to work. I know it means nothing, but I wish I had said hello that night. So there you have it. Maybe you won't make a difference in someone's life by doing some simple thing, but, who knows, maybe if enough people do some simple thing, maybe it could all add up and make enough of a difference to keep someone alive one more day. Who knows? Right? Worth a shot. That's what right? We hope so. That's what we want. We have just a few minutes left, so we do have time to cover a quick tips and tricks. Let me show you the graphic. Let's see, we'll do a fade short on this one. Tips and tricks. It's 7:55. We have enough time to cover tips and tricks. This tip and trick is, I found it at helpguide.org, a trusted nonprofit guide to mental health and well-being. It's pretty simple, easy to remember. Start small and stay focused. The key to depression recovery is to start with a few small goals and slowly build from there. Draw upon whatever resources you have. You may not have much energy, but probably have enough to take a short walk around the block or pick up the phone to call a loved one. Take things one day at a time and reward yourself for each accomplishment. The steps may seem small, but they'll quickly add up. And for all the energy you put into your depression recovery, you'll get back that much more in return. So, I personally, this morning I got out of bed, I brushed my teeth, you know what I mean, adding them up. Like, okay, you're on a roll, Johnny. You know, we made it to work. It's 7:56. We have enough time to play the theme song one last time for you, and we're gonna head out. If I can get this mouse to go where I need it to go. Ooh, almost, just a little more. And right here, we're gonna do the full screen. We're gonna play it because we're out. Yes, we're gonna do a fade. We're gonna do a cut and watch the theme. Thanks, everybody. We'll talk to you next month.
All around the world, from Baltimore to Budapest, the human spirit's in unrest. The economy collapsing, corporate interests rising, what-time religion on the run. Oh, but no